Hello and welcome to the CleanSlate theme development tutorial series. My name is Adam and today we're going to talk about how to output navigation onto your site. So, outputting navigation in a CMS is a fundamental concept. We have a number of ways to do it inside CleanSlate. On this page on the CleanSlate help site, if you go to how to and tips, theme development, and then the getting started guide, there's this custom navigation page that talks about how to do it and the various ways that you can create navigation on your site. So the first way, which is the most common and most widely used, is this R-Site menu tag. This R-Site menu tag basically outputs navigation starting from your site's root, and you can tell it how far or how many levels you can output navigation beyond the top level. So to illustrate that, let's just take a look. This is again the CleanSlate demo site that uses the CleanSlate toolkit, and this is the site menu for this site. So it outputs these top level navigation items, and it uses this code. So this is the code for the navigation. It has this outer wrapper, a container, some grid stuff going on, but the main code here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it better, is this R-Site menu tag. So without any attributes or anything, displaying just like it is here, it will just output the navigation at the top level. So if we were to look at the site menu for this site, and we go to pages here, we can see that there's a home, future students, all the way down to faculty and advisors. So when we look at this, this structure is represented here one-to-one. And you'll notice too that some of these pages are hidden. So for example, this one's not published and it's excluded from navigation. So these tags are going to respect that. If you want, for example, one of these pages to not show in your main navigation, you can hide it from the navigation and it will not show. So there are a number of attributes and options that you can add to the R-Site menu and the rest of the menu tags. Some common ones are like adding a class to it. So you can have a class to the UL, you can have a class to the LI element. And I should mention that the R-Site menu tag will output navigation in an unordered list. So unordered list, a UL, and several LIs and several anchor tags. So you can have an unordered list class, a link class. You can have a max depth. So for example, by default, it just outputs the top level. But if you want to go beyond one, you want to go to the second level, you can do that and output navigation to any number of depths, and it'll output navigation with unordered lists and nested unordered lists. You can add active and open classes, has children classes to your navigation, all kinds of attributes. And just to show you what this looks like, I will go ahead and open up my code editor here. And we're going to type R-Site menu, and then I'm going to paste this attribute in here, and this is how you would go about adding an attribute to your site menu or other navigation or basically any other radius tags. You can add this here. We could also add a link class, so we come in here and add that here. Then we just change this to whatever we want, right? So that's how you would output a site menu or a main navigation onto your site. Let's look at some of the other ways that we can do it too. So the next navigation that we're going to talk about is the R submenu tag. A submenu tag lists the child pages that are direct descendants of the current page as an unordered list. Just like the R-Site menu tag, it also accepts a number of attributes. So for example, we have an example submenu over here. We have these are actually pages under future students. So if I look in the sitemap here, this is the future students parent page, and then these are the pages under it. So This is just a submenu tag, R submenu right here, and it automatically lists out the pages underneath future students as another list. And let's check out some of the attributes available to this tag, which are going to be a lot like some of the attributes that we've seen: UL class, UL ID, LI class, link class, that sort of stuff. A max depth, so by default it's going to only output the immediate children from the page that you're on, whereas you might want to go deeper than that. You might want to output the first immediate children and the immediate children beyond that too, perhaps. So there are a number of options. Again, we can come up here, copy this. Maybe we want to see it in action here. Our submenu, and then we can say max depth, 2 or 3 or whatever, and it would output onto our page. Pretty straightforward. The next menu tag that I want to talk about is the Ancestor menu. Curiously enough, this is actually the Ancestor menu over here. So this tag will list all pages going up from the current page and pages at the root. So if you put this tag in a page nested deep within your site, it will print out all pages above and below the current page, but it will not print out pages nested beneath other root level pages. So again, this is actually pretty helpful. So pretend like, you have a mother and father. Maybe you can pretend that you are a navigation, and then your parent page, your mother would be the parent page. That's one way to think about it. You can specify in the attribute settings for the Ancestor menu where to start and where the max depth is. So page depth to start listing pages from, and the max depth to start listing pages from. Again, we provide examples of what it looks like down here. Here's an example of what that looks like down here, and you can actually go ahead and remove a number of these. So yeah, start depth, max depth, active class, that kind of stuff, all this stuff available to you as attributes. One of the things that I often tell people if they are trying to output navigation onto their site, and like they might not be so, you might have trouble determining, okay, what should my start depth be, or what should my max depth be? What I would recommend is to actually, I'm going to go ahead and actually remove this and then just kind of simplify it here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. You can take this navigation, and we're going to actually go into a page on our site, and we're going to use the Radius snippet here. If I go down to Radius and drag the snippet into the sidebar, I'm going to say Ancestor menu, and then I'm going to paste this in here, and yeah, so we're going to just see what this looks like. I hit that, and I can hit save and then refresh this page. This will allow us to see what the Ancestor menu looks like, and maybe I say, okay, maybe I don't want it to go, all the way through up, have a start depth of 1. Maybe I want to have it be a start depth of 2 and a max depth of 3. So this will allow you to kind of play with the numbers there and see what the navigation will output, which is pretty helpful. So one of the last automatically generating navigations that we're going to look at is actually for breadcrumbs. So we have the breadcrumbs right on this page. Breadcrumbs starts with a home, goes to the parent page, and then lists the current page. And I actually don't think we have the breadcrumbs listed on this page, but if we look in the tag documentation, there's this R breadcrumbs tag, and this is essentially what it is. We can actually also go to the CleanSlate toolkit, and I'm going to go and open, let's see, header is it? No. Let's look around. Okay, I'm going to jump back to views, and then there it is, breadcrumbs. So for this CleanSlate Toolkit site, these are the breadcrumbs right here, and this is the actual code that it is using to output those breadcrumbs. So you'll notice this one has an actual class on it, on the UL, that is outputting the breadcrumbs for this, or is outputting the class for the unordered list on this navigation. So that's breadcrumbs. Keep in mind, you can always come back here to the documentation and figure out, if you want to pass an idea class, a link class, that kind of stuff. You can always do that right here and see what the attribute options are in the tag documentation on the CleanSlate CMS site. So the next kind of navigation that we're going to talk about is how to output navigation using labels. Labels on pages to make custom navigation. So what does that mean? So in CleanSlate, we actually have the ability to create labels. So for example, there's this awesome label right here. I can actually label a page with this awesome label. And I can add labels to other pages too. So maybe I want to add the same label here. Oh, not that. Labels, awesome label, and then I'm going to say label example here, and we can add new ones and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and now we have added labels to pages here. We could actually use some code to take these two pages, any page with awesome label, and output it into a custom navigation by referencing the label that is on the page. So how do we do that? We actually have a page right here called Page Label Menu. So if you click on How To's and Tips, Theme Development, and click on Page Label Menu, this documentation page lists how to actually list pages that have labels. So what this is doing right here is essentially saying, I'll zoom in, make sure we can see it really nicely. We're going to start at the root, and then we're going to get each of the descendants, and we're going to look for descendants with the labels, and then this is the name of your label. So if I were to be doing this on the pages that I just labeled, I'm going to come in here and remove this, paste this in here, and I believe our label was called awesome-label. So I would take this right here and say awesome-label, and then I could paste this into my theme or into a Radius Snippet, and I could actually have an unordered list that lists out what is the Honors College and why should I join the Honors College pages. So I'm going to behind the scenes do that and output it and show you what it looks like. So I went ahead and added this code to a Radius Snippet on a page. This is the page. I just added some descriptive text to show what we're doing here. But keep in mind, we added those two labels to our page here. These are two pages with our labels, right? And they're under future students. This page is actually this test page right here that I've added them to, and it is indeed outputting those two pages. So being able to output pages or output custom navigation in this way is pretty helpful if you need to do something that maybe you need to pull pages from disparate sections of your site that are very helpful that can't be done with either the site menu, ancestor menu, or submenu labels or submenu tags. So there's two remaining ways to output navigation, or two commonly remaining ways to output navigation on a CleanSlate site. One is the second to last one that I'm going to talk about is using data page IDs. So if I have a link, I'm gonna make a link right here. So I'm gonna link future students, this future students page, and say, yep, I want to link this here, insert this link, and then I actually go into this editable regions HTML. you'll notice that this link has this data page ID attribute. Let's see if I can blow that up for you all here. This data page ID attribute is listing the page ID of future students. And you'll notice here that instead of linking to the page in production, it kind of knows that we are in edit mode right here. And if we clicked on it, we would want to go to the page in edit mode. So this data page ID essentially rewrites the link based on the mode that you're in. And it also kind of provides a permanent reference to the production URL and the edit mode URL. That page ID never changes. So if you have a menu that you want to output, you can output it using the page ID, the data page ID, and not have to worry about, for example, your content editors changing the location of the page and breaking the URL. That data page ID will always rewrite the URL to the correct URL, whether or not you're in edit mode or whether you are in production. So I can hear you saying, how do you find this page ID? If you actually look at this page, we're in this page in edit mode right now. This URL is pretty telling. So it says we are on the site with an ID of 64, and we're currently on the page with an ID of 11,179. So that is the page ID for this page. Similarly, if you go to any of the pages in your sitemap and hover over them in the bottom left down here, you can see that it'll list the URL, and that is pretty much the easiest way to get the page ID. You can either have it listed down there, or maybe you want to just pull it up right here and it'll be listed in the URL bar right here. So that is how to get the URL of the ID of a page in CleanSlate. So the last way to make navigation in CleanSlate is pretty simple. As you all know, you can actually just go ahead and make straight HTML links, nothing else. There's nothing fancy going on here. You're just creating an anchor tag with an href and linking it to a page. This could be something like that. You could have a full URL, or you could just pass the path. Now, I should mention that nothing fancy is going on here. So, for example, if a content editor moves this page or changes the slug, changes the page name, whatever, it has potential to break this navigation. So, whenever possible, if you're gonna use a method like this, it's probably best to either try to use data page IDs or to use another navigation like site menu, submenu, ancestor menu, or labels and stuff like that. But I just wanted to point out that this is indeed a method that you can use. So that about wraps this up. If you want to check out some custom navigation, I would encourage you to click on How-Tos and Tips, Theme Development, Getting Started Guide, and click over here on this custom navigation page. It will show you how to output navigation based on everything that we talked about here today, and link you to the various documentations for those tags in the tag index. In the next video, we're going to talk about partials in CleanSlate. Stay tuned.